Good afternoon and welcome to Link. Our guest today is the incredible Mrs. Florence Rice. Welcome to Link, Mrs. Wonderful Florence Rice.
Oh, right.
Mrs. Rice, I have probably told you that you are the person I want to be when I grow up. And many of us. Well, I'm telling you, Mrs. Rice, you really give us a lot to work toward. You've been an inspiration to so many of us here at Manhattan Neighbor Network, throughout New York City, fighting for us before we were born, actually, and an inspiration around the world. I know there are people around the world who look up to you, Mrs. Rice, and so I just want to thank you for being on the planet.
Well, I just thank you for being here and having this kind of opportunity.
Well, Mrs. Rice, this kind of opportunity didn't just happen. It was a result of many years, many people, many struggles. And I want to recognize you're, what is this, 96?
96.
96 years of work, of struggle, of fighting, of building. And Ms. Rice, tell us, what year were you born in?
1919.
From 1919 to right now, you've seen so much.
I have. Have come through quite a lot.
So much. And could you summarize the difference between 1919 and today in a line or two, few words?
Oh, wow. Well, I think I came up in the Colored Orphan Asylum. And so therefore I lived with at least, I'm trying to think, of 3 different people. Long Island, in Jamaica, Long Island. PS 40 I graduated from, only time I graduated. And it was just the people. I lived in Peekskill, I lived in Spark Hill, and I became an adult.
Okay, let me ask you something about those different schools. Were they segregated? Were they integrated?
Well, they. I would say they were segregated if I go back most of the time. Yes, I would.
So what was that like? Was the orphanage segregated too?
No, the Colored Orphan Asylum.
It was for black.
The Colored Orphan, which is now the Jewish home.
And who ran it? Nuns?
Well, I think that many products that we have years ago, it was their wives who was responsible for colored children many years ago, because they saw this woman with the children, and out of that, and it was just interesting how the orphanage came about, because it was, I'll say, the Quakers. It's just a different thing that you hear as you're coming down the road of life. So it just made you, one of the things they used to say in growing up, you don't lie or you don't steal. And if you steal, lie. And so therefore you were told you tell the truth and shame the devil. I'm just saying what was always taught to me.
So that was a strong moral foundation you feel like gave you?
You're not supposed to lie or steal. All of the different things that children do today. But you were told, and then you were brought up, you had to respect, especially older people. So it was a lot of things that was done in that day. Today it's not done.
Did they have the schools? You said public schools, so you left the orphanages and you went out to school and then came back?
Well,
or did they have it right there?
It came through as the years, as I grew. What can you say? You just grow, you know.
The reason why I asked that is because during my lifetime, I've worked in shelters, and I worked back in the 60s when everything took place in the same building. We had the school there, we had the hairdressers, we had the doctor, everything was in one building. And then maybe 30-some years after that, I worked in other systems where they had decentralized all of that, and the children lived in these group homes. So it was a very different kind of setup. So I was just wondering if you
I would say that it appeared that generally I went into homes. I was the only foster child there at the time. And that was in Jamaica, Long Island, and then from Jamaica I went to upstate New York, Peekskill, Spark Hill, and it was really, it appears that people were quite different that day, and they're raising children. And like I said, one of the things they always said, if you lie, if you steal, you lie, and just not knowing how to be honest.
Well, the word honesty is synonymous with Mrs. Florence Rice.
Yes.
That is who you are, an honest person.
Yeah.
And that honesty has cost you, I know.
Well, yeah.
It's not always, a lot of people say it's not easy to be honest. I guess that means they don't want to pay the price of being honest.
Yeah. One I always, like I tell, if you lie, you steal, and you have to keep it up. And it's many times I say putting on a false front. So I just believed in being honest and telling you like it is. Maybe you might not like it, but that's about it. But I think what I enjoyed doing when you could go change things, you know.
What was your first experience, Mrs. Rice, when you had to actually stand up and just stand up and fight for something? Were you very young?
I was young. I was young. But what sort of well, they say I'm the history maker for consumer education, because before I came along with no consumer education, and the fact is, it was just once I could see how the business storekeepers and with poor people and how they were being cheated in honesty, and that it appeared to be what was happening, because they assumed that most of us back in them days, I said, we were just out of slavery. I look at it.
For real?
And, yeah, and as a result of that, I just want to teach people, really, when you go to buy, know how to buy. And there was a sister, when I say a sister, a lady from upstate, now I don't remember, but college, and we made a booklet up of how to buy.
Mrs. Rice, trust me, I've seen some of your literature, and it's like going to college, actually, to read some of the information that you put out to inform us that we just don't know anything about. But I'm still curious about how does a child just stand up and I mean, how did you get to be so courageous? And
I don't know.
You don't?
I don't know. I just know it was wrong. I think it was the training that I got from people. So with the honesty is the best policy, and it was all those things. And like I said, if you lie, you'll steal. And so therefore, you don't lie. And I had some, coming up, those foster homes, I had some darn good parents. That's what I would say. And as a result of that, it just made me who I was. And one of the things they always said, honesty was the best policy.
Mrs. Rice, some of the, you've had so many, so many of your campaigns, I'm calling them, have really helped to change our society. And I don't know if people know all of that. We'd have to put 8 hours to talk about some of your campaigns. Let me start with that green button you have on. It says economic racism. What is that?
Economic racism.
What is that?
Well, it is, and it's very much today, because, one of the things that's bothering me, that our young people, many of them aren't getting jobs because they only speak one language. And as a result of that, they're sort of, and right now, to me, racism is really what is hurting many of our people today.
How
Still exists right
come,
now with the housing.
Ms. Rice, every time we say that, they accuse us of raising Cain. They accuse us of saying things that aren't true. We know it's true, but how do you get it across to people that there is such a thing as, I mean, they might say, well, you don't have a job because you're lazy, or you're this, or you're that. What do you say to them?
Well, when I talk about the schooling, they made sure that we were always at the bottom of the list. So it may, and let me put it in here. Look at the many products that black men at every level, and you see how someone else signed, and when there was registered in Washington or somebody else's name, their names are not at any of those things. So I think it's our society, racism, it still exists. For people like me and others, it is changing a little, but there's many concerns that I'm still concerned about. And what I am concerned about is the fact that how young people, it appears, filling up the jails, you know.
So what is that all about?
Well, I'll say I documented a lot of that. The fact is, they're even talking about naming city or whatever it is, because after someone where you know young people, and that's what's going on. With the collections that I've done over the years, all I try to do is tell mothers and to what has been done. Oh, Colin, what has been done to us is to label us, and what happens? Sure, some people will get through, but what they've done is label us, in which in some places right now, in some states, racism is alive and well. And and yet I'll saying that, and what bothers me, sometimes when I look at television, and I said, well, you don't hear, and to me, television is a good example of racism, because I see more of, I'll call it garbage on, but nothing that we have done, and there's a record that shows you what our people have done over the years. And one of the things I like to talk about, no one talks about how the Chinese built the railroads and all that, or the different things that's done. That's always put I don't know if I'm, but it does.
That's an important part of American history, and you're correct. It's not talked about.
Yeah, it is, you know. But when you see what our people have contributed so much, and the only time you hear is something when someone has committed a crime or something like that, but you don't hear what many of us have brought to the table, but don't get recognized.
Don't get recognized. Mrs. Rice, it's talking about recognizing. You had a center on 125th Street.
Oh, that was the Verizon. That was a computer center. Yes, I had to, because when I saw what was happening, and I'm ignorant in reference to using the computer, because what happened, I'll say, when I went out there and started to work, it was what happened. I couldn't, when time came, when people were offered jobs for computer and stuff, because I didn't have it, and I didn't have that knowledge. It was interesting. Well, what I saw my people moving on in areas, so just because I couldn't do it, just get laws or create situations where people see this is what we should be doing. And it was Verizon, I hope, Verizon that gave me, that I did that computer center.
I remember, Mrs. Rice, you were talking about computers before I knew how to operate them. But you were right. You were right.
I got lost.
You were right. Mrs. Rice, tell me, let me...
you got it.
I so many things. I want to ask you something. Tell me about Adam Clayton Powell.
Oh, he was something. Don't ask me about it. He was really something. It was when I testified with Adam Clayton Powell that he told me that if I testified with Adam, and there's information on it. I have it at hearing, and I testified, and the ILGW. I never worked another day after I had testified.
Yeah, they said that.
Yeah.
So there's a price, as you said before, for the honesty.
Yeah.
There's a price for speaking up.
Yeah.
You didn't stop speaking up.
You have to.
Yeah.
When you see something is wrong. Mm-hmm. And what bothers me today with many high unemployment amongst our people sort of bothers me because it's all on account of racism. Many of your companies don't even hire them. So...
Let me jump a few generations. I see your sign, War on Seniors. What's that all about?
Well, there's a war on seniors, and many seniors, and what bothers me many times, people who come to help aid them, or I would say in some of the institutions where people, old people are. And in many instances, I find that people get abused. Or you hear some of the young people, their children sometimes have a way of their checks, and there's a lot of things going on that you hear that people tell you what happens in some cases. Yet there's some heck of a lot of good young people taking care of their parents, but it always you don't hear nothing about them, so it automatically makes you realize. And I've had some good people support, no finance, no money, but there's other things that they've done that's helped me on my way.
Well, Mrs. Rice, there's one war on seniors. One war on seniors that you were personally involved in, and that is the moving seniors out of their homes and their apartments to bring in people who could pay much higher rents in our community.
That's what's going on right now. Mm-hmm. And what I love it when you talk about that, how the Chinese down in Chinatown, how they pulled all them people together, because what they are doing with me, let me tell you, they were told not to evict me or whatever. It's documented. Nobody's had to answer to that. So I was evicted out of my apartment. I'm back in there. Somebody else was living in the apartment. It looks to me, the people upstairs don't have to obey no rules or regulations.
Yeah, well, you got back in there, and there were a lot of people behind you. And you know what? I hadn't planned on saying this, but I'm going to say it because it needs to be said. I remember during your struggle, there was a presentation that was made up at Columbia, and there was a remark made that there were no black producers who supported you, which was a lie. So I have to take this opportunity to say that there were. All of us were behind you, and I have to call a couple of names. I have to call Nat's name. I have to call David's name. I mean, they were there with the cameras and the coverage that you got, I'm pretty sure, in Amsterdam and other places. Mm-hmm. So I just want the general public to know that statement that was made, that no black producers were behind you, was just an out-and-out lie. Wow. But I don't want to spend too much time with that negativity, Mrs. Rice. Mm-hmm. I want to talk also about what you did for the seniors as far as the direct deposit of Social Security. Tell us your role in that, please.
Well, it's just that you speak up and let other people hear that what is out there, and there's a lot of good people out there, regardless of race or color.
But I'm saying that this direct deposit, you were involved in that struggle because seniors weren't getting direct deposits
Oh,
we were getting checks.
Yeah.
So
Today's very soon.
right.
Yeah.
And you want to talk a little bit about how you help bring that about?
Well, it's just letting them know, but talking to the right people sometimes. That's really what it is. Because sometimes the people out there don't know what's happening. So that's what because I'd say that mostly everybody wants to do the best.
I like that. See, that's one thing about you. You, despite all the stuff that's happening, for you to say everybody wants to do their best.
Yeah.
They don't always have the opportunity. They don't always have the information. But I was going to ask you about some of the things that keep you going. But just that statement right there, believing that people want to do the best. That's a hell of a statement, Mrs. Rice, because I think that connects you in a way with people that, when you don't believe that, it's hard to really connect with other people. You got to believe that.
Well, I would say you have to. And what I say, there's some good in everybody. And there are people who are concerned and has been so for many, many years. But the fact is, again, part of our society is still that racial thing, and it's happening. Maybe I'll be long gone, but maybe racism will not be. But it exists. Nothing. It exists, but you don't. People don't talk about it.
Mrs. Rice, here we are in Manhattan Neighborhood Network. Public access station. This is just as good a station as any of the TV stations here in New York.
I can remember we used to be next door before.
Yes.
It's just to see how it had grown and sprung up, and just see how many people had benefited from it.
So, how can you connect that with, I guess, the young people out here who feel they don't have a voice? And when I say young, anybody younger than 96 is young, I guess, to you.
Well, it's the idea if they believe. Just like, when I saw how seniors was being evicted and how they were being, and still are, it just made me step up to say we got to do. There's nothing better than what down in Chinatown, how they have pulled on the 28th. Of October, how they're doing and working in that area, and then you have again Nellie Bailey, who has joined, has been doing housing for quite a while. So I would say people really want the best for everybody, but sometimes it's how it's given.
Mrs. Rice, you produce a weekly show.
So give me
a weekly show in New York City. You're 96. When we go up that hill, I can't keep up with you. They're getting ready to give me a signal I can see. What do we have? 5 minutes. So I have to say, Mrs. Rice, where do you get that energy to produce this show once a week? I mean, I know you got some great people in the control room, and I love them to death. Mrs. Rice, but if it wasn't for your energy, we wouldn't even be able. You give us energy.
Oh well,
not a show a week, Mrs. Rice. How do you do that?
Well, we're supposed to help our next. We're always supposed to help, not tear them down.
I hear you.
Always, because from what there's a good in many people. Just some people have other ways of expressing it.
I hear you, Mrs. Rice. You got about 3 minutes. Anything I didn't cover that you wanted to say?
Well, all I'd like to say for our youth, we have to take care and look after our youth, the mothers who have babies and children. One of the things that bothers is the second or third generation. They don't teach their children respect for older people. So therefore, that I'd have to say, because I see more disrespect to older people out there from the young, but nobody's, really shown it up. But with our generation, it's what we put out. And then I don't like to think of negative things all the time, because I would say there's a little good in everybody.
And a whole lot in others, like you. We love you, Mrs. Rice.
Oh, well, I thank you.
We love you.
And you're leaving the city.
Well, we won't talk about that right now. We won't talk about that. I can't ever go but so far away from those I love,
All right.
Mrs. Rice. And thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thanks for coming here and sharing this afternoon with us.
Thank you, because one of the things I say, God take care of babies and fools.
And He also takes care of angels, which you are. You're no baby, you're no fool either. Yeah, I know He takes care of you, and you've been taking care of us. You've been taking care of all of us.
I really think, because that's what we're supposed to help each other.
Thank you, Mrs. Rice.
And that's the most important thing.
Thank you, Mrs. Rice.
And thank you. This is a surprise to me.
Well, it's a surprise to me. I was hoping you'd be able to come, and I'm so glad you're here. You honor us, Mrs. Rice.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I have a beautiful young lady who's
I saw her out there. I want to say a few words to her. We got to go, darling. Good night, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us on Link.
Oh, wow.
Sweetie pie.